that kind introduction, you'll know that I did indeed work at the State Hospital for several years before I was elected to the Scottish Parliament in 2007. So I am very familiar with this part of the world. I'm also very familiar with that lovely village bakery just a few miles out of Carnarvon. That wee baker's with those massive meringues. I often used to stop by there lunchtime from the State Hospital and buy a few meringues for special occasions, and then of course pretend that I'd cook them myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I thought very carefully about whether or not to put myself forward to become the next Deputy Leader of the Scottish National Party. I'm a parent, I'm a busy working mum. I'm already a member of the Scottish Government Cabinet. I have a very demanding and a very politicised portfolio. Essentially, I'm an employment minister in a government with limited job creating powers. So that makes my life very interesting and indeed very challenging. But I believe that I have led the way in tackling youth unemployment, not just in Scotland but across the UK. The Scottish Government, we have pioneering policies such as Opportunities for All, a policy that doesn't exist anywhere else in the UK, a guarantee to every 16 to 19-year-old in this country of a place in education or training. And I am told that the Welsh Government are about to emulate that guarantee that we have. I've overseen our very successful flagship policy, the Modern Apprenticeship Programme, ensuring that we've met that very ambitious target of 25,000 modern apprenticeship starts every year, but of course we've got ambitions to move that up to 30,000 apprenticeship starts every year. And we also in Scotland have the most ambitious wage subsidy scheme to help small employers recruit young people anywhere in the UK. It's called Youth Employment Scotland, in other words the Yes Fund, so you'll see there's no flies on me. But of course I always recognise that there's much more to do, and while I'm proud that since I've had the youth employment brief that we have 40,000 less young unemployed Scots in this land of ours. But it is frustrating because we still have so much more to do, and we very much do need full job creating powers now, and that's why independence is so important, because it was the only way to guarantee all of those job creating powers. But tackling unemployment for me isn't just a political commitment, it's actually a personal commitment. I grew up in a West Lothian mining village. I was a teenager in the 1980s, that's the time that I became politicised. It was Margaret Thatcher that made me a nationalist, but it was also mass unemployment. And my father, a man that had been a worker all his days, had a very protracted period of unemployment in West Lothian in the 1980s. So I know what unemployment does to individuals, I know what it does to families, and I know what it does to communities. And I represent my home community. And all politics is local, but also all politics is personal. And I'll talk about the importance of local politics later when I talk about the importance of the grassroots movement of this party. In essence, I want this election for the Deputy Leader of the SNP to really at its heart to be all about how we continue the campaign for independence. No ifs, no buts. Yep, I'm a Democrat. I accept the result of the referendum. But in a democracy, we have the right to continue to campaign. We have the right to fight for what we believe in. And I'm determined that we'll always fight for what we believe in. And I want to be continuing that campaign for independence, head, heart and soul. Because there will be a next time. I might not be able to predict when that next time will be, but we need to be prepared for that next time to ensure that next time we win. One of the things that's left an indelible mark on me, and it comes from my own constituency experience, and I know it's the same the length and breadth of Scotland, it was actually those with least who voted yes hand over fist. And they voted yes, they voted for independence because they seen hope and opportunity where previously they had seen none. And many of these people voted for the first time. And we need to ensure that that newfound hope is never expired or extinguished. And we've all seen the very recent reports this week about rocketing child poverty, an absolute scandal in a resource-rich country like Scotland. Now, on the 18th of September, I, like all of you here, I was campaigning in my local patch. I was involved in the knock-up, and of course the knock-up's usually a very important part of getting the vote out, that persuading reluctant voters to the polling station. But it was very different this time being involved in the knock-up from any other election, because people had either already been to vote or they were going to vote. And of course we've seen, that record turnout for the election. Because at last folk had something worth voting for, something more than just a choice between look-alike politicians. And after the results, disappointed yes voters did something that was really quite extraordinary when we stop and think about it, because in their thousands, disappointed yes voters joined pro-independence parties, and they have joined pro-independence parties. Over 50,000 folk have joined the SNP to continue that campaign for independence. And those disappointed yes voters are now acting like winners. Yet, when you watch that sparsely attended debate in the House of Commons on Monday, there was no sense of how politics in Scotland has actually changed. A few folk paid tribute to the high turnout, the record levels of turnout. A few folk made some patronising comments about how some of us are really passionate about our politics. And then we quickly moved on to English votes for English laws. And that's, of course, before we've seen the promises of vows disappear like snow off a dike. But crucially, no one in that debate asked why so many Scots had become inspired and motivated and engaged in the political process. It was as if they had learned nothing. They are not interested in addressing that disconnect that exists in politics right across the UK, that disconnect between politicians and people, that disconnect between parties and membership, and that disconnect that arises when people feel they're not being listened to. So I'm standing for Deputy Leader of the Scottish National Party because I recognise that change has taken place in Scotland and that change has taken place in Scottish politics, and thank goodness for that. And if we are to step back into conventional politics, we will be letting people down, and we need to find new ways of working together as a party, but also as a wider yes movement to harness that energy, that excitement, and to galvanise all of those who voted yes because they see hope in their future. I have always made clear that I'm standing as Deputy Leader. I am not putting myself forward as Deputy First Minister. That's purely an appointment that's at the gift of the First Minister. But the job of the Deputy Leader in the party now, with over 80,000 members, is just so much bigger. It's a bigger job because we are a bigger party. And I very much want to be focused as Deputy Leader on the needs of our members, the needs of our party and our wider movement. And I do believe now is the time for us to change as a party. Our processes and ways of doing things have worked well for us up to now, but we need to recognise that Scotland's changed and politics have changed, and we've got to keep pace with the times. So some of the changes that I would like to see is the quality of membership. I don't believe parliamentarians should have any special privileges when it comes to how they acquire their speaking or voting rights at policy-making forums such as National Conference. You can see I'm going out my way to win friends in places of influence, but I believe that whether you're a rank-and-file party member, a councillor or a parliamentarian like me, that we all have equal status as members and that we should all be standing as equals in this movement, shoulder to shoulder. And what's really important about that is that if you believe in grassroots democracy, you have to believe in the primacy of our branches. You have to believe that that's where the powerhouse of our movement should be. And you have to believe that that councillors, parliamentarians, rank and file members, that is where they get their rights to vote and to participate in the decision-making process. We all have to be equals in this grassroots movement. And our branches, I see, are very much the building blocks of policy development and political organisation. But they're also key to making Scotland a better place and to making Scotland a better place right now. We should have branches in every heir and pair in Scotland. We should have branches that are embedded in community life, empowered to tell folk like me what is actually needed in streets and in communities the length and breadth of Scotland, and branches in a grassroots movement that has the power to make things happen because they can influence and direct the leadership of the party and hold people like me to account. There is much talk about holding Westminster to account and holding their feet to the fire, and I absolutely endorse that. But our rank and file membership should have the power and be emboldened to hold the leadership of this party, to hold the politicians to account, to hold our feet to the fire, to ensure that we do everything to make this country a better place and to advance the cause of independence. I also believe that we now have a great opportunity with such an expanded membership to look at the decentralisations of resources. How can we use membership fees and indeed parliamentary levies? How can we use that to support the infrastructure of that grassroots movement? I think all of the candidates have spoken about the need for regional bodies, and I am supportive of regional bodies. I don't think they should be fitted on top of parliamentary regions. I think regional bodies have to reflect natural communities, real communities, if you want to get participation, and we have to be thinking in terms of natural communities and transport links and how people can have accessibility and how people can actually participate in forums. I'm also a great believer that we need to find the right mechanism to connect with the wider Yes movement. I would be in favour of affiliated status to pro-independence groups who have unequivocally stated their support for independence. I think we need to find the right ways not to control the wider Yes movement, but to work closely with it and to work collaboratively with it, because it's the size and the diversity of that movement that accounts for our strength. I also think we need to learn some lessons from the referendum. The referendum was both an enriching and salutary experience. I'm not interested in regrets, I'm not interested in pointing the finger of blame, but there are things that we have to learn for next time. And we have to think about why we didn't reach out to enough women. We have to think about why, having one of the worst pensions in Europe, we couldn't convince more older people. And we have to think about why we couldn't reach out to quite enough new Scots. We have to think about these things carefully to learn for the next time. And I know we can all point to a list of fears and smears by the Better Together campaign, but we always knew that they would resort to the lowest common denominator. So again, we have to learn for the next time. And my final point, because I'm aware that I'm about to run out of time, is I do very much want to see women at the heart of this movement. We're on the cusp of something very special with our first female First Minister, and that's fantastic. Let me say, this is not just about a few women and a few positions of leadership. We were told that women featured heavily in the don't knows in the referendum campaign, that they were less interested. And of course, we were infamously told that women were only interested in preparing cereal for their families. And don't start me about that patronising Better Together lady, the most insidious piece of propaganda I've ever came across in my life. But women are underrepresented in all aspects of our political and civic life in Scotland. And I have signed up to the 50-50 Women campaign. It's a European-wide campaign because I very much believe that we need to tap into all the talents and the potential and the participation of women at the length and breadth of Scotland. I have never been one of those women that have said, well, I managed to get elected, I managed to get in the cabinet, I've managed to get a decent job, so it should be all right for anybody else. That's what the Tories do. That's what Ruth Davison says. She managed to do it, so why can't everybody else? But we all know that life's not like that, and if we want to move forward as a country, we can't leave anyone behind, and that we have to take everybody with us. And it's not just the right thing to do to ensure we have equality in this country, it's actually the smart thing to do, and it makes us wiser and better performers for it. So thank you very much for your patience. I do that thing that all politicians do, and that's invariably talk too much. But in essence, there will be a next time. We need to be prepared for it. I'm working for that next time being sooner as opposed to later. And I'll be continuing the campaign for independence. No ifs, no buts, head, heart, soul. Thank you.